Hey Peter, a few more things I wanted to point out, particularly in your main attic. First thing, I wanted to show you how we treat the hatches to the attic. We use a rigid foam board rather than just a loose piece of fiberglass insulation that can fall around and get displaced. And you can see what Ivan is doing here. He's marrying the panel to the insulation so it never moves. And then we want to put some type of a weather stripping so that when it sits inside of the hole there, it's got a nice seal. I mentioned also to you that there were a few places, and you're going to see in this video, where the ducts are, just a little bit disconnected, not really great connections, and that's typical. So there are some things there that can be done, and I'm going to make sure that I point that out in the report, and also try to line you up with a rebate for that. And you can see here how we treat something like that. We would use a foam solution where just around those joints, we want those connection points and those junction boxes or those connection boxes. We just want to make sure we get those sealed and insulated well. And when the insulation cures, you can see how it hardens and really is just going to fill in those gaps, and it's not going to go anywhere after that. So moving along here, I just wanted you to see that the connections, the ducts in your attic, they actually look really good. It's kind of like a mixed bag with your HVAC. It's sort of interesting. You have probably way too much tonnage, but the duct runs were really good. And what I mean by that is a lot of times you go into a house and into an attic and you see the ducts are kinked and they're running all different ways. Now here, I just wanted to point out to you in this particular location, the depth of the insulation and the fact that yes, we do want to seal around those recessed lights, but more importantly, there's a little bit of inconsistency in the insulation, but overall, I do think that the attic is fairly well insulated. It just needs just a little bit more, and that's a good example of why. There's a few places that it's been, degraded down, but for the most part, it looks pretty good. So just to get a feel for where I am, I showed you yesterday that area, and now I wanted to just give you a bird's eye view of the area above your son's room, and I have a theory about that that I'm going to kind of get into at the end. And I just wanted to show you a few things from up top here. You can kind of see how those ducts, as I mentioned earlier, are nice. They're stretched nice, and yeah, they have to make a few dips and turns, but even that's done, professionally. It's done well. It's looks good to me. And the other thing I wanted to get a bird's eye look at is just how the insulation is well distributed. It's even. And, in that area above your son's room, it's probably some of the best looking insulation at 14 inches. And then you can see here, as you saw in the video earlier, how that main supply plenum hits that box, and then those additional branches run off of that. So now, I'm really kind of getting down to the far end over your son's room. And I wanted to point out the number of inches, getting back to that 14, and the conversion factor on that is a 2.73 per inch R value. So right now, in that area, your attic is at R38. And as I mentioned to you yesterday or the day before, we want to be R49. So you don't need too much, but I do think that some of those uneven areas and a few of the other things that are going on in the attic will benefit from a few more inches. So just to take this even a little bit further for you, I wanted to inspect the connection to the from the supply to the room. So in other words, if you have the branch, the duct running out to the supply, and I wanted to got a little ahead of myself here. Wanted to show you what it looked like when we actually do add some insulation. This is a similar project to yours where they had a healthy amount of insulation and they just needed a little bit more, and they had a few ducts that were also running on the ground, sort of similar to what you were seeing, and you can kind of see what that looks like when we blow that cellulose. Now, the other benefit you may have noticed from the previous video, there were some mouse droppings, And I'll give you a chance. I'm not going to read this for you, but insulation, cellulose actually is a good deterrent for that. So having a little extra insulation up there, cellulose in particular, is going to help with deterring some of those rodents because you live on the field and I see all the mouse traps as well. So back to my adventure here to the very depths of your attic. I wanted to again inspect the connection point, and you may be able to pick it up if you go back a few times. But when I put my hand down there, you can kind of see what they use there is they did use a foamed box. So that is insulated, and that's a good sign that, as I mentioned earlier, things from that standpoint look really good and professional. Just still just a little bit concerned about the amount of tonnage that you have relative to your square footage, but I have a little table that I'm gonna use to look at that a little bit later. But here, I just wanted to point out in this video as well a few places that I spot checked for air sealing, and that's a plumbing penetration in the main attic, similar to one that you saw down in the lower attic. And I just wanted to spot check that. And in the video, I apologize, it just got a little away from me here, but you'll get a good glimpse of it here that that area is not air sealed. And those are just great opportunities. And to just take that a step further, what I also pointed out there, those are your top plates, or at least one of them. And you can just see it's just the construction style or the type. There's just a nice gap there at the top of that wall, and we just want to make sure we seal all that because air, it's omnipresent. So even though the walls aren't places where we're actually living or spending time, your air does get in there, and we don't want it to flow up through and out into the attic. So anything we can do to seal at the tops of those, that is the name of the game. And just here, as I was speaking, you see that one of your bathroom fans, I guess that's your son's bathroom, that is properly vented to the outdoors, and that looks good. I didn't want to go messing around too much with your insulation, but we're, back in this corner, more on the front now, and everything looks good. So here's my theory on the back. That's the attic connected to and above your bathroom. And I think what's happening there is that area is also adjacent to your son's room. And if I remember correctly, there were a few spots at the base of that wall, which would be the ceiling of the bathroom, that also could use some blocking and sealing. And that would be connected to the floor below your son's room. So we just want to make sure that we get that area all tightened up. And I think that will also lend itself to, being more comfortable in that particular part of your home. Thanks for watching.